What is good, YouTube? It is your boy NCSO7 here, and welcome back to another review video. Today I'm going to be reviewing Tokyo School Life for the Nintendo Switch. Now, something to keep in mind is that this review will be structured kind of differently compared to my other reviews because this is a visual novel. So, yeah, not really a lot of gameplay. So, unlike my other videos where I focus a lot on specific, like I kind of try to be equal with the categories, here it's going to be more so focused on the story aspect of the game, but don't worry, there will not be spoilers, so don't worry. And even if there are, they're very minor, no real major spoilers, even though you could probably predict a good amount of stuff that happens. So with that being said, let's get into the review, starting off with, of course, the presentation. Now, this game is very beautiful to look at. I mean, visual novels are supposed to be that way. At least I think so. And this game does not disappoint the eye. All the artwork is beautifully drawn. The 3D character models, I think they're 3D, look very nice. Their animations are very cool. Even if sometimes they can look a bit like Sakura bobbing and weaving from sleep. It looks cool for a little bit, but then after a while it just looks kind of weird if you ask me. Also, there sometimes can be a bit of jagged edges on some of the characters and whatnot. And some of the 2D backgrounds, when like it shows the girl, can sometimes look a bit pixelated when they show them really up close. It's not a big deal at all, but it's definitely something I did notice. And performance-wise, the game runs perfectly fine, whether it's on the TV or if it's on the little handheld thingamajig. It runs really good. Now, I mostly pretty much play this game in handheld mode, so it looks really nice. The game loads really fast. Not really much else to say from the presentation other than it's really, really good. And now onto the story, the biggest part of the game. Now, I have not really played that many other visual novel games except for Doki Doki Literature Club, which all of you should know at this point, considering that's how my channel is even popular. But this game story is pretty simple. You're basically this guy who like moves to Japan for a while to live with these 3 girls, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Honestly, there really isn't a lot to the main plot of the game as a whole. It really only happens once you start getting into the girl's specific story. Because for like the first half of the game, it's basically you being with these 3 girls, and then maybe one of the girls, you'll do something, like one day you'll do something with Karen, another day you'll do something with Aoi, and the other day you'll do something with Sakura. It's basically trying to get you to know who the characters are, to kind of see which one you like the most. And in order to determine what ending you can get, they give you choices, which essentially choosing certain choices will make the characters like you more, and some choices will make the characters like you a little less. And honestly, it's kind of whatever. Honestly, the first half of the game is pretty meh, if I'm going to be completely honest. Nothing really happens. There's no real story at all. Not really much at all. And that's kind of my main issue, is that there's really no overall plot. You kind of just go to Japan and that's pretty much it. I guess you try and get to know a cute girl, but that's pretty much it. There's no real reason. There's really not a lot to it. Also, the protagonist, oh boy, in the first half, wow, he sure runs into a lot of anime cliches. Yeah, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of anime cliches at the beginning of the game. It's really unnecessary, and I get it, it's a visual novel, but at the same time, come on, man, you could do better than this. But moving on to the actual characters, though, once we get into the second half into the game, this is where you'll eventually get a choice on which place you want to go to, which basically will determine which ending you get. There's 3 endings in the game, as well, main endings at the very least, as well as one bad ending, which is as it says. I won't spoil them, but I will say they're good. Honestly, they vary depending on the character. So why don't I do that? Starting off with probably my least favorite character being Aoi. And that's not because she's a bad character, it's because I think her story is kind of meh. Her as a character is very good, but I think her story is just kind of non-existent to an extent. Like, there's this whole thing with like her fighting spirit and all that stuff, and like training to like for self-defense and whatnot, but it's like there's really not a lot to her story. Of course, I don't want to spoil too much because, again, spoilers, but there's really not enough to say about her story, and her story isn't very consistent, and it kind of just feels all over the place. There isn't really a clear focus. Like, there's kind of one, but there's also not. I don't know. It doesn't feel as focused and as like the other two characters. For those reasons, that's why Aoi is at the bottom, but she's still a very good character though, personality-wise. And then my second favorite is Sakura. I know a lot of people like Sakura, and she's pretty good. In fact, probably the best written out of all the characters, because her story of her basically being this otaku can be relatable to a lot of us. Very quiet and shy, but she's very passionate about a lot of things, like writing the manga and whatnot. And of course, her health conditions really make it a lot more intense. Definitely really, really solid. Pretty good character and pretty decent story. And my favorite character is Karen, but that's really mostly because of the fact that A, she was the one I went for first when I was going through all the endings. And second of all, I don't know, something about tsundere is always, I don't know. Not saying that I'm necessarily completely into all of them, but I don't know. Something about Karen is very cute in a sense. Even though she basically threatens to call the police on you like a true Karen does. But later though, she shows the good side of her, and her story is pretty good. Even though I wouldn't say it's as good as Sakura's, it's still very concise and to the point, and it feels really, really good, and probably the longest one out of them all. And honestly, I just like her personality. She's very cool, but she can also be a bit hot-headed at times. But it's not really that bad once you really get to know her. And yeah, that's pretty much all the characters. But of course, there's the protagonist who can be very unlikable at times, especially during the first half when you're just at the bookstore and Sakura just wants the book that you're taking. And it's just like, why not just give it to her? Like, a cute girl's there, why not just give it to her? Like, I don't even care. Like, I'm not even trying to simp, just give it to her. Just be cool. But I don't know, he just kind of seems a bit unlikable. I don't know. It's just kind of whatever though. But honestly though, the story though in the game is pretty good, and that's also because of something else I haven't mentioned yet. And that is the fact that the game, while it is a like visual novel dating sim to an extent, even though it's not super deep, it also is kind of educational at the same time. This game is heavy in Japanese culture, and it will not hesitate to educate you on certain things about Japan. Like, you'll be like, sometimes you'll just be out and about, and they'll like sometimes like the text box will just display some information, or the characters themselves will literally just say like, this is what this is, and all of its like history and like significance and whatnot. It's very cool for people who want to learn Japanese culture, because it kind of gets people who know a lot about it or don't know that much about it really invested into it. Even if sometimes it does seem like a bit much and can kind of break the pacing of the story, it's still really, really solid regardless, and is really appreciated, especially given the fact that the girls don't talk in English but in Japanese most of the time. Sometimes they talk in English, but not really that much at all. But honestly though, story-wise, it's really, really solid. And gameplay-wise, there's nothing to it. And control-wise, there's nothing really to it. But in terms of content, I paid like $15 for the game. I'd say like the game is really not that long. I'd say your first playthrough is probably gonna only be like maybe 4 or 5 hours, more than likely, to go through your entire first run. And then like every other run after that would probably only take like maybe 1 to 2 hours more. So in total, you're kind of looking at a pretty much a 9-hour game, or like an 8 to 9 hour game for a 100% completion. And that does include skipping dialogue that you've already seen and whatnot. So, yeah. But honestly, though, it's not really that bad because the game's so cute and innocent and whatnot that it's really not that big of a deal at all. And yeah, content-wise, I can't really say much bad about it. And the soundtrack to the game is very good. It's pretty typical soundtrack. It's not really that special, but it's a very nice soundtrack. Very cute, very good. Because this game is very cute. Very weeb heavy. And now into the final thoughts. Honestly, this game is very, very solid. It has a great story, very cute characters. It's just a cute game, honestly. I'd say if you're into visual novels, I'd check this out, even though I'm really not. I kind of like to play games more. But even so, this was still a really good game to eventually just get off my backlog. Because I had the game for like 2 years, but I just never beat it. Never finished it, so glad to get this game off the backlog. Really good story and whatnot. Although I do wish there was a little more depth to it. It does feel kind of shallow at the end of the day. Though that may have been what they were going for. Very good game to start off with if you want to get into visual novels. Excluding Doki Doki Literature Club, even though that game spoiled me a lot. But that's besides the point. On my scale of 0 to 10, I give Tokyo School Life an 8.5 out of 10. This game is very good, and again, I'd recommend it if you want to look into visual novels. And the game, I believe, is also on Steam as well. Steam and Nintendo Switch, so check it out on those systems if you're interested. And I believe they even make physical copies now as well. But with that being said, let me know what your thoughts are. And if you want to see more reviews of visual novel games, then I would probably say don't watch my channel. Unless you just want to see a lot of Doki Doki stuff, because that's pretty much what I do. But I don't really play that many other visual novel games, so yeah, but hopefully you enjoyed the video anyways. Hopefully some of you guys can check it out, considering it's not really that popular of a game. That definitely deserves attention. But with that being said, this is NCSO7 signing off. Peace!